Welcome to Return to Home with Michele Broxton, where we go back 100 years and explore our great-grandma's vintage recipe favorites. Today, we're going to make some good old-fashioned casseroles. I thought we'd just start with two of my favorites, green bean casserole and sweet potato casserole. Now, you may have made these two casseroles before, but I can almost guarantee you've never made them like this. And if you need the exact recipes, make sure and go to returntohome.org for all of our recipe favorites and details on our upcoming cookbook. Let's get started. I always try to start with the thing that takes the longest first. So let's start with our bacon and our sausage. Bacon and sausage, you say? Yeah, we're going to put some bacon and sausage in our green bean casserole. I told you might not have ever cooked like this before. One of the things I've said to you before, and I know that you'll find that it's true, this is not a diet cooking show. This is a good home cooking show, and it's made with just things that you normally have in your pantry. So it really makes it easy for you to make nice homemade meals for your family. That's the way we do it on the farm. See, where we live in Missouri, most of us live on farms, and we're pretty far away from town. So we go to the grocery store once a week, maybe even sometimes once a month, and we have a lot of canned goods in our pantry. So we try to buy a lot of things at one time and make do with what we have. And today, we're going to make do with some good old-fashioned casseroles. Once this pan starts to get hot, we're going to put our meat in there. While we're waiting on that, let's go ahead and dice up our mushrooms. Now, I have washed our mushrooms already. I'm just using regular white mushrooms. We're going to go ahead and take a few out, and I'm going to saute these with our meat. I think when you saute mushrooms and onions with your meat, it makes all the things taste even better. I typically slice them, and then, now I cut my mushrooms in half again. Why, you might ask? Because I have kids. And sometimes if the mushrooms are a little bit too big to chew, they recognize that they're in there, and they don't want to eat them. Otherwise, they'd eat them just fine. Now, I see that my skillet is starting to get hot, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our bacon and our, we're going to go ahead and put our bacon and our sausage in there. Now, I know that our grandmas did not have kitchen scissors, but if you do not have a pair of kitchen scissors, you need to run right out to the store and get you some. They are as handy as a pocket on a shirt. I'm going to go ahead and cut this up in the pieces that I want it to be in. And the reason is because it's going to get all mixed in with everything else, and so it'll be harder to break up later. Normally, you could just cook your bacon and mash it up later. There is not much that smells better than fried bacon. Now, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but we have a pretty large agriculture population here in Missouri. We have pork farms, we have cattle farms, we have corn farms, we have soybean farms, we've got pumpkin farms that we talked about yesterday, we have apple orchards, we have all kinds of things, and they are all supported so wonderfully by the Missouri Department of Agriculture. They have a special program that's called Missouri Grown. You can find more about it online, and it really helps our farmers and our local farms. It helps us grow, it helps us get to market. It helps us just learn more and do more with our businesses and our farms. Farming is a little bit of a lost art. And for those folks who are wanting to get into farming, who've never been into farming before, it's a wonderful resource. They've been really wonderful to work with, I can tell you, as a woman farmer especially. Our family has been farming this area since the 1700s, and I would venture to say they've probably all been boys, and I think I'm the first girl to actually run the farm. And so it's been really nice to have the support of the Department of Agriculture and the Missouri Grown Program to help me whenever I have questions, and just, from everything from feed questions about my cattle to crop questions. We even have flower farms in Missouri. Did you know that? We have honey farms, pumpkin farms. We are a farming community. There's a lot to do and see in Missouri. We're right in the middle of the country, handy from all directions, and definitely worth the trip. Now, I'm going to warn you, once you start making your green bean casserole this way, you are going to be the official green bean casserole maker for your family. So I hope you really like making green bean casserole. Okay, next let's go ahead and put some of our sausage in there, and then we're going to chop up some onion and put in there as well. I'm going to break this sausage up in little pieces because I don't really want to mash up my mushrooms trying to get to my sausage. Now this is going to be enough green bean casserole to fit in a 9 by 13 pan. That's just about right for a nice big family gathering or a potluck. I'm going to take a moment and wash my hands. Now if you have canned green beans, you can use your canned green beans just fine. What I would recommend is that you go ahead and drain all the juice off of your green beans, and I'm going to show you what I like to use instead of the green bean juice. It just is a little secret ingredient that makes it extra yummy. Now remember, we don't want to eat the brown part of our onions, so we're going to clean all of that off our cutting board. And our knife. Perfect. I am going to use this whole onion, so we'll just chop it right down the middle. Hopefully this one won't get to me like the last one did. You know what I say, if you need a good cry, just slice an onion. Oh yeah, it's a good one. Whew. I wonder if there's anyone that an onion doesn't affect. Let's get that right in our pot. Next, let's put a little bit of minced garlic. This is so good. Now at some point in time, your cast iron is going to get a little bit too hot to touch, so just be careful with that. So yummy. I think we'll also go ahead and put in our special seasoning and our salt and pepper. If you'd like the recipe for our seasoning, you can go to returntohome.org and you can find all of our recipes there. You know, you can use a salt shaker if you want to. I just like to keep it in a little cup and put it on. I don't know why it's so therapeutic. So much about cooking is therapeutic. You know, you get an idea in your head and you kind of run through what the ingredients that you have in the pantry, and you decide whether or not you have enough to make it. It's wonderful. Okay, let's get started on our green beans. Now we talked about your green beans. If you're using canned green beans, whether you've canned them or you've gotten them from somewhere else, you do want to go ahead and drain your green beans. So let's go ahead and add our green beans now. And then let's make our sauce. Now, this is where I do things just a little bit different than your average bear. I'm gonna go ahead and add some milk. And what you're trying to do is you can just eyeball this and see how much I use, but you're wanting to make this a little thinner than you want it to end up, because as this cooks, it will thicken in your green beans. So we're gonna add, I'd say about that much. And we're gonna use my mama's little hand mixer. I remember her using this as a little girl. I love this thing. We're just gonna blend this until it's completely combined. It's old, so it's a little bit of a chore to use, but it makes me so happy when I do use it, because I just remember her using it. And part of cooking, especially in these old recipes, is the memories. So that's looking really nice. I think I'm gonna make that just a tad bit thinner. I mean, not much, just a little bit. And at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and add my seasoning. Now, the way I do this is I'm basically gonna make my own chicken stock out of this. So this is chicken stock seasoning. That is another secret ingredient to this recipe. A little more milk, and let's give it another stir. I remember my mom making entire cakes with this. Can you believe it? It's gotten bent over the years. I think this was actually my grandma's. And I was just old enough to see over the top of the counter. And she'd take it and she'd scrape around the edges like that. And then start working her way toward the middle again. The handle's broken. I don't care. It was my mom's. And it was, I think, my grandma's. My kids love for me to make scrambled eggs with this. It's a little bit, it's kind of a lot to make scrambled eggs with this thing, but they love watching me do it. Okay, that's looking really nice. Now that's the consistency that I like to see. You can make it a little thinner than that if you like, but I like a really thick, hearty green bean casserole. So this is the way I'm going to make it. If you want it thinner, you can sure make it that way. So now we're going to add our cream mixture into our green beans. Whoops. That works just like a regular blender. Let's give this another stir. Doesn't that look delicious? My Aunt Emma makes it like this. And the first time I ever had green bean casserole made like this, I was hooked. I didn't want anything else at supper other than green bean casserole. If you have pieces of sausage that are still too big, you can just break them up a little bit with your wooden spatula. Do you see now why we cut up that bacon little in the beginning? It'd be kind of hard to deal with big strips of bacon. You just want nice bite-sized pieces of everything so that when a person takes a bite of your dish, and this really goes for anything, you got to think about when a person takes a bite of this, what are they going to taste? You don't want the good parts to be all just in one section. You kind of want to spread the good parts around. Okay, let's get our cream mixture into our green beans. We've got our green beans in our bowl, and we're going to put this in. Wooden spatulas are just so universal. They're just good for everything. Let's see. There we go. Now this is cream of mushroom soup. You can use any kind of creamy soup. You can use cream of celery soup, cream of chicken soup, any kind of creamy soup will work. And you can make your own homemade cream of mushroom soup or cream of celery soup or cream of chicken soup. Just check out our recipes at returntohome.org. Now when you're mixing this up, you want to be very gentle and you want to use a folding motion. So we don't want to break up our green beans or mash our green beans. So we're just going to stir them gently and nicely. And remember, this is all going to get stirred one more time whenever we add in our meat mixture. So we're just looking to coat our green beans nicely. That's perfect. It's going to look too soupy to you, but remember that creamy mixture still has to coat everything in this pan. So this is going to be just about right. Now that our meat is fully cooked in our cast iron pan, we are ready to add it to our green bean mixture and put it all in our 9x13 dish. There's a few different ways that you can do this. Sometimes handling a cast iron pan can be a little bit daunting, especially if you're in the house by yourself and you're a little bit worried about grease. I'm going to show you a really easy way to get your meat out of your pan into your second pan without having to pick up a heavy, hot cast iron pan. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to just turn off the heat. The next thing is just as easy as pie. Pick up the dish that you want to put your meat into and get a ladle that is like this with holes in the bottom so the grease can drain out. And you just start picking up your meat, let it drain, and you just drain it one little scoop at a time. Easy as pie. Easy as can be. Now, you say to yourself, but Michele, what if I end up with some bacon grease and sausage grease in my dish? I say to you, that's just going to make it better. You don't want a lot because it will actually make your cream mixture separate, but a little bit, will do ya. It'll be really good. This smells so yummy. I don't know if shaking it actually makes it drain faster, but I always do that. Maybe I'm just slinging the grease out. Now, one thing I wanted to tell you is that this is going to cook, but you do want to get your meat all the way done before you put it in here, because pork does need to be cooked completely thoroughly. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So to be safe, go ahead and cook your bacon and your sausage and everything all the way thoroughly in your cast iron before you put it in your green bean dish. It might cook a little bit more in your green bean casserole, but it's not going to cook a lot more, and you want to be sure that you're safe. That's perfect. Now listen, if you're going to make gravy anytime in the near future, this would be great to make gravy with. Really great. If you need a good gravy recipe from drippings, make sure and visit us at returntohome.org, where I show you how to make a good flour gravy from drippings just like that. We're also going to put it in the cookbook, and I'll send you the recipe. So I have greased my 9x13 pan. The next step is just to fold this in gently with our green bean mixture. Now remember, we are trying to be gentle because we don't want to break up our green beans. We don't want mashed green beans. We want our green beans to stay whole. And we just want the creamy mixture to cover all the bite-sized pieces of green beans, of sausage, of mushroom, of onion, of bacon. So yummy. So yummy. That's looking really nice. I think we're ready to put it in our pan. We're going to just evenly spread this out into our 9x13 dish. And then we'll bake this at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. Now, you know I like to have my oven preheated to 375, and then once I put things in the oven, I turn it down to 350. Part of the reason why I do that is because when you open the door, your oven cools off, and I don't necessarily want it to have to go through that preheating cycle again with my food inside. That's delicious. Okay, let's give it a little more salt and pepper because we didn't salt and pepper our green beans yet. So they're going to absorb all the salt and pepper we put into our meat mixture. So we're going to just lightly salt and pepper the top. Trust me, it takes a little salt for this because green beans need a little salt. And we're also going to pepper the top as well. I like a coarse ground black pepper. I especially like it if there's several different types of peppers all mixed in together. That makes it really yummy. Doesn't that look good? Now for the topping. I love fried onions. You can make yours at home if you'd like. You can find the recipe on returntohome.org. These are just fried onion pieces. You can cut up an onion as thin or as thick as you'd like it, put a little batter on it, salt and pepper that thing right up, maybe a little garlic salt, and then put it in some grease, just like this, and pan fry it. And then let them dry out on a paper towel or in the oven, and you've got some nice fried onions. Let's put these on top. You can also buy these at the store. And if you're going to buy them at the store, I would use, depending on how thick you like to put your fried onions on top, I would use 1 to 2 containers per 9 by 13 dish. I like a lot of fried onions on mine. So now we're going to put this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes, and it will bubble, it'll be delicious, and you're going to thank your lucky stars that you know how to make green bean casserole just like great grandma did 100 years ago. I'll see you right back here in 30 minutes. Y'all, I am so excited to share with you one of my all-time favorite recipes, sweet potato casserole. Now, when you were little, you probably didn't like sweet potatoes very much, and I will tell you, it's probably because you didn't have them sweet enough. I'm going to show you how to make it good. First, we're going to take 2 pounds of sweet potatoes. Now, you can have these either already prepared and canned, or you can peel them, clean them, cut them up, and boil them, whichever you like. We're going to take these 2 pounds of sweet potatoes and put them in our bowl. This is really almost like a dump cake recipe. It's just dump, 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 and bake it. Then we're going to put in our maple syrup. Okay, we're going to put in melted butter. About a 1/4 cup of milk. I'm going to eyeball it. Now, when you make homemade vanilla, you want to make sure it sits for at least 2 months. If you want it really, really good, let it sit for 6 months to a year. And just remember to shake it a little bit once every week. We're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. That might have been a little more than a teaspoon. The next thing we'll add is our flour. We're going to put in 1 egg, perfect, and a teaspoon of cinnamon. Now you might be wondering why I put the flour into this mixture. It's because my sweet potatoes were just a little bit juicy and I want them to thicken up whenever they bake. You can also use cornstarch for this if you'd like, whichever way works best for you. flour is just kind of a country way of doing it. Perfect. Once that's mixed together really well, we're going to actually mash this and blend it into a all-together mixture. Now, y'all know I like to use my mama's old hand mixer. I remember her using this when I was a little girl. There sure are easier ways to do this, but there aren't favorite ways. You can use a blender, you can use a mixer. What you're just trying to basically do is break up the big chunks of your sweet potato. And since you've boiled your sweet potato, it should be pretty soft and easy to do. We want kind of a chunky version of mashed potatoes. This is going to be so good. Now, one thing I'll warn you is that once you make it this way, you are going to be the sweet potato casserole maker in your family. That's really coming together. I think that looks great. Wonderful. Now, the next thing we'll do is we're going to put in just a few chopped pecans. That's totally optional. If you have a nut allergy in your family, you certainly don't have to do this. I like to put chopped pecans in my sweet potato casserole, and I also like to put chopped pecans on top of my sweet potato casserole. There's something about the holidays that's just it's so warm and inviting, and it just makes us want to get in the kitchen and bake, doesn't it? I think it's nice to have those just history recipes that we go back to that just feel like they're a part of our family. Just like a friend or a guest that comes to dinner every single time. I can tell you in my family, it's really fun because the same person brings the broccoli cheese casserole every time, and the same person brings the corn casserole every single time. And now you'll be the person that brings this casserole every single time. It's really fun to be well known for something that you're really good at. I'm so happy we're doing this together. It makes me really happy that you're here. We're going to put just a few more of these pecans in, and then we're going to get this in our 9x13 pan, and then we're going to put our streusel and our marshmallow on top. Now that we make our streusel, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of all things, I don't know, just family and good. And I wanted to tell you, if you ever happen to come to our farm in Missouri, you should stop by and see Fine Linen Drama. They're a wonderful organization here in Rolla, and they do theater and all kinds of civic work. You can find out more about them at finelinen.com. They do all of their work in this beautiful old church. It's such a great community organization. I've really loved working with them. They have carolers that come out to the farm at Christmas time. It's just really lovely. Have you ever caroled before? What are your favorite things to do around the holidays? You're more than welcome to email us. I'd love to know more about it. You can email us at hello@ozarkfarms.org, and we can send you information about Fine Linen Drama, and I'd love to hear your holiday stories and your family stories. You know, you can put as many or as little pecans in this streusel topping as you'd like. I like a lot of pecans, so we're going to put quite a few. Once we get our pecans chopped, we're going to put butter and flour and brown sugar. That is just a quintessential streusel topping. That looks just about right. Let's add our butter, brown sugar, and flour. first, our flour to cover our nuts. Perfect. Now brown sugar. We always want to add our dry ingredients before our wet ingredients if we can. This is really going to caramelize nicely on these pecans. Perfect. And now our butter. I typically say we don't measure butter with our eyes, we measure butter with our heart. But when you're making a streusel, there is a ratio that you need to follow. And it's equal parts butter to flour to brown sugar. Or equal parts butter to flour and then half as much brown sugar. That makes a great streusel. Oh, we're getting so close. Look how yummy that looks. I can't wait to sprinkle it on top of our sweet potato casserole. See how that's separated but still kind of gummy? That is the perfect streusel texture that you want. Let's get it in our greased 9x13 pan and sprinkle our streusel on top. We'll mix in our nuts. Perfect. So perfect. Look at those gorgeous chunks of sweet potato in there. I just love eating food that just feels like it came straight from the farm, don't you? This is just wonderful. Now you might notice that this is kind of far down in the pan. You're going to see why in just a minute. We could have chosen a smaller pan, but you're really going to want the tall one. Now the streusel topping. I start at first by just making sure every bite is going to have some streusel topping. And then if we have any left over, I go back and fill in any scant spots, as my mom would call it. That's gonna be so good. And listen, if you feel like you'd like to have a little more streusel topping than what you ended up with, just do that all over again. Just make enough streusel all over again and put some more on there. This is your recipe and this is your sweet potato casserole. Now for the marshmallows. You can make homemade marshmallows if you'd like to, but you don't have to. You can just buy the ones at the store, or you can make them homemade. If you'd like to make homemade marshmallows, we have a really great recipe we'd love to share with you. You can email us, or you can just sign up for our email newsletter at returntohome.org. I always aim to put these in beautiful straight lines. And then I find spots that I missed putting a marshmallow. And I don't want anybody's bite to be without a marshmallow. So I end up just putting marshmallows everywhere. Oh, there's no bad way to put marshmallows on something. You just scoot them over. They're very forgiving. Marshmallows make good neighbors. This is why you need a tall pan, because these marshmallows are going to puff up so beautifully. Now we are ready to put this in the oven and cook this at 350 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes. You're going to be so happy with this sweet potato casserole. I'm so glad that we took some time out today to spend some time together and make these amazing 100-year-old family recipes. This green bean casserole our way And sweet potato casserole with our pecan streusel and marshmallows on top is going to make you the star of the show at every family gathering. Watch out, because you may just be the one that brings these from now on. Let's take a bite. I like to use a big spoon whenever I get things out. Listen to that crunch. So delicious. So yummy. Now these are both going to be really hot, so we want to be careful taking them out. Let's get a little more of that streusel. Delicious. I'm so glad that you joined me today on Return to Home with Michele Broxton, where we made green bean casserole, sweet potato casserole, all from 100-year-old vintage recipes, just like our great-grandma used to back in the day. You can find more about these recipes and Ozark Farms at ozarkfarms.org or returntohome.org. I hope that you'll join me next time as we make more family favorites together.